Hello again to our instructor's presentation section for week 4. As the topic for this week is our projects, concepts, systems thinking, and management functions. What we're about to do is to continue our journey through our earned value procurement and cost management course. We have started out looking at pricing and estimating in preparation for going through our cost control and earned value management. Now to move further and going into pricing, make buy, trade-offs, procurement and contracts, cost management, we want to take a moment to look at the environment that our projects have to exist in and our duties and responsibilities and sensitivities to the world around us. So this week our topic is projects, concepts, systems thinking, management, and you're going to find that in Kurtzner chapters 2 and 5. It will be very instructive, and I hope you find this an interesting week. It really will, for some of us, show us a dimension to project management that we may not have been all that familiar with prior to going through this section. Looking at our company for a minute, looking at our firm, our organization, all of them have strengths and weaknesses, just like our projects do, just like we do, just like situations do. In a firm that has its strengths and weaknesses, it's really important for us as project managers to be aware of our competitive advantage as a company and what those strengths and weaknesses are. And when the company positions itself, when it sets itself up to do business and it decides what business it wants to be in, what it wants to accomplish, how it wants to fit into the economy, a couple of questions have to be asked. And quite often these questions have to be asked from time to time to evaluate, have we gotten off track, or are we still want to be in the business we're in, or why are we in this business? Do we want to move to a different dimension of the market segment? In so doing that, many organizations use a mission statement as a focus for the individuals within the organization to be able to read, appreciate, understand, and these statements guide the company, basically make the statement what the company is all about. And defining that mission statement is really where we start when we want to look at what is our strategy, what is the method in which we want to do business. As project managers, we have to do practically the same thing, analyze and diagnose the environment. We have to realize that our projects got to survive and thrive during their brief lifetime or extended lifetime in the environment, in the culture of our company, and also in the competitive world around us. And it is our duty and our responsibility to make sure that we do the proper analysis and diagnosis to come up with what fundamentally is the root source of what we are trying to do, what we're trying to be, where our project fits, and what's the best way to manage our projects. In that case, we need to apply ourselves to establishing a project strategy. In many cases, this project strategy may be selected for us by management if it's an internal project, and also if it's a customer solicited project, our strategy may be set for us by the requirements of the customer, their statement of work, and what they want to acquire. But quite often in an internal project or a project being run within the company for a sponsor within the company, a customer within the company, there is an opportunity to look at the project, look at what we're trying to achieve, and determine a methodology, a strategy, a project strategy, which really is the best for the situation that project is really a part of. When we're planning this strategy, selecting this strategy, we need to take into account what our customer inputs from their WBS, their specification, budgets, and all that. And that can be an internal customer or an external customer. We need to look at the environment. What's the environment around us? And not just the environment in the outside world or in this community that we're in, or city, state, country, but also the environment within the company, within the division, within the organization that our project is in. We need to take these things into consideration and then establish an approach to determine a strategy, develop a strategy, looking at assumptions, setting objectives, looking at the risks, deciding if this is an acceptable strategy that will give us the best opportunity for success in our project. Over the last 10-15 years, project management has become more sophisticated, and project management has been applied to a lot more projects than just the standard, or project types rather than just the standard traditional project management. And in looking at the project methodologies, we've been talking to this point about clear goals. We have to really know what the goal is, set it, focus on it, drive into it. But in the real world, we find out that if we look at two dimensions of a project methodology and a project's environment, its culture, the sense of a project, the goal of a project, what is desired to be accomplished, we might find that we could take the goal and basically break it up into two categories. Whether the goal is clear or not clear. Very simple. It's either clear or it's not clear. And also the solution to that goal, whether it's clear or not clear. If we have a clear solution and a clear goal, that's our traditional project management, TPM. If we have a clear goal, but the solution towards that goal, how you're going to achieve that goal is not clear, that gets into the lower right quadrant, which is agile project methodology. And then we have, if the goal is not clear and the solution is clear, we're looking at the MPX extreme. Also, if we really get into that upper fourth quadrant, which really gets hairy, we have a goal that's not clear and a solution that's not clear. But yet, in all four cases, we may find ourselves with a project that needs to go forward, and we need to select a methodology, our strategy, how we're going to achieve that project and what's the best way to do it. So we need to have an understanding for that and how that works. And when looking at some of the critical factors when we're talking about project success, here's some basic truths that we come to know as our project management experience grows. As the complexity increases, our ability to define requirements decrease. The more complex it is, the harder it is sometimes to really define the requirements. Also, as the complexity increases, it may require that our processes require more flexibility. We can't use the straightforward, true and tried processes that have served us well for more traditional type projects. And also, as the complexity increases, so does our ability to manage change. We have to become far more sophisticated and able and acknowledgeable and with foresight to be able to manage change, because the ramifications of not doing that has many magnitudes. The risk increases also as our complexity and our uncertainty increase. We can have projects that are off the traditional clear goal, clear solution. The game gets to be a lot tougher. Looking at it in a more complex, but say that we're looking at this at a different dimension. We're taking that same quadrant, clear goals, unclear goals, clear solutions, unclear solutions. We map 5 models defined across these quadrants, 5 models for the project management lifecycle sequence of processes. And those 5 processes, scoping, planning, launching, monitoring, controlling, and closing, their scope and breadth changes appropriately to fit the selected methodology. Looking at the diagram on the right, we can see that these 5 models of project are extreme, adaptive, iterative, incremental, and linear. The linear and incremental models are used mostly for the traditional project management methodology. The iterative and adaptive, that's mostly used for the agile methodology, and you can see that fits in that lower right hand quadrant. And then we have an extreme, whether it fits in the emeritus or into the regular extreme, that is the model that's used when our goal is unclear, whether the solution requirements are clear or unclear. Looking at the project management life cycle models for these 5 different models, they're mapped linear and incremental in the traditional, and then in agile we got the iterative and adaptive, and then in extreme we have the extreme. And you can see that the models for linear and incremental are pretty clear and mapped out. But then when we get into agile and extreme, these life cycle processes, and they change rather drastically depending on the situation, the scope, the team, and how the project is managed and put together. When we're looking at these methodologies, and we want to go through them, the traditional one, simple, straightforward, specify a goal, clearly, they say a diminishing species, and that is not that it's diminishing in the sense of it's not being used. The fact is that there are so many more projects being commissioned that are in the areas of unclear solutions and unclear goals. A lot of development, startup companies, a lot of newer applications, R&D areas that in software it is not very clear exactly how we're going to get to the end yet, or specifically what the end is really going to be. The traditional, in taking a weighted quantity, a smaller number. However, traditional is still very effective and very much used in very large projects. Projects that have like a new airframe or a ship, new development of some electronic equipment. The rolling wave methodology is one that is very effective when it is properly applied. And the rolling wave methodology is basically when you know what your goal is, you know where you want to go, but there's some elements of functionality or some characteristics of the project that may not yet be clearly defined, or the customer may not have a clear decision made on what some of this functionality. And so the rolling wave goes as first phase, or the first section of the project, first period of the project, is very definitively scheduled, estimated, planned, and performed as if just a straightforward traditional project management methodology. As you get closer to the end of that phase, then you have enough information and decisions are made so that the next phase can be detailed planned, detail estimated, and funded and rolled out. And then this continues through the various phases of the project, and that's why it has the concept of a rolling wave. You go so far in a detailed project, and then you detail out the next portion of the project, and then you detail out the next portion and the next portion until you finally come to the completion and achieve the goal of the project. In extreme, this is where we have the goal and solution not clearly defined, usually R&D. There's little planning between the phases. Often we use concurrent approaches, which means that we sometimes have multiple teams working practically in parallel with each other. These are very high-risk projects, and you can appreciate that they're going to be high-risk projects because there's so much that's not defined. In Agile, these are where our solutions range from clearly specified to not clearly specified, and the WBSs cannot be 100% defined. The type projects we use here is that there's a critical problem without a known solution, some type of business opportunity that not a lot of experience in, and in Agile projects we normally have a very, very small team, and there's usually not a great deal of leadership with it, but rather there are small elements, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, where detailed planning is laid out by that small team, and then as they work through that, then they do the next segment. They also go forward, taking care of that project as it goes forward. And then there are some variants to Agile: continuous development, concurrent engineering. Many of these I'm sure you've heard about. We'll talk a little more about them. If we were to just compare one of the more popular, Agile, with the traditional, looking at some of the characteristics between those type projects. The size of the project, as I stated, the traditional can be very, very large team, and usually the project team on an Agile project is very small. Skill levels are usually all levels on a traditional project, and Agile, you really are using top flight, highly skilled individual contributors that can make the difference, and that's why you have a very small team with highly skilled individuals that work in a most autonomous way. In traditional project, you can have co-location of your project team or distributed. As we know, we may have them in different countries, they may be in different time zones, they may be in different divisions located across the company. However, with an Agile project team, it is really imperative that that small team be co-located and working together. And the experience levels for a traditional project team, we usually select the skill level, the experience level that we need to get the specific task done. In a Agile project team, we want nothing but the most senior experienced people involved in it. The traditional project management team requires supervision because of all the foregoing comments that I have made. In an Agile, because of the senior experience level, the most skilled individuals, and the contribution and creativeness you need to get out of that small team, that team is usually running unsupervised, or rather they supervise themselves. When we're talking about concurrent engineering, we're talking about the basic premise that goes around 2 cycles. All of the elements of the product's life cycle are considered and put into the concurrent engineering environment. The overall goal, the nature of it is that these, by running activities, running functions, running the concurrent tasks, we can really increase the productivity and the quality of the product. And there's a lot of iterative information going back and forth between the teams in concurrent engineering. So that we can maximize what we are producing, and that is also adding in great measure to improving the product quality and improving the time to market. In Agile, one variation of that is the rational unified process. This is one process that is highlighted and highly promoted by one major company, and they've actually taken the life cycle and reworded it, put it into 4 elements, and they call it inception, elaboration, construction, and transition. This is the same thing as taking the project through its beginning planning all the way through closeout. However, the way it is looked and laid out, they use this 4 process for keeping the project much tighter and under better control. The use of this rarefied unified process, or RUP, is an agile variant, and of course then this would be applied for where we have higher levels of uncertainty in the project that's under consideration. Here is the traditional waterfall, where this is the traditional project where we basically are looking at feasibility of a project, business analysis, requirements analysis, and then we start getting into the project, doing the planning and the design and the construction, acceptance, and implementation of the project. Going to the incremental, you can see that where we have this analysis, design, coding, and testing in the first increment, we overlap that in time with a second crew doing a analysis, design, code, test, not of the same functionality as the first, but rather taking that on to the next level and adding additional functionality to it. Then we have increment 3, increment 4, and in this way we get deliveries of these various increments much, much faster than if we just did it either in a waterfall technique or if we did it sequentially. In rapid application development, now here you're looking at having 3 teams that are overlapping each other. They're fundamentally doing the business modeling, the data modeling, process, application testing, and turnover, and the second team is following them with additional capability for the end deliverable, and then team 3, and there can be multiple teams, as many teams as really required to do this. There's a spiral methodology where what we do is we continuously go around a circle from identify, design, construct, evaluate, and then we go and we work from the inside out. We're looking at business requirements in the inside, conceptual design, proof of concept, risk, and then we move out to system requirements, logical design, first build, evaluation, and then subsystem, and then unit requirements. And then once we have all those, then we're out, we deploy, we have created in that project. This is a modified spiral where you have different levels of spiral, and then you just are moving from concept development to another level where you're doing your product development, another level whether you're doing enhancement, and then finally your final level where you're doing product maintenance. All of these various concepts and methodologies apply to a point and to a project definition depending on the environment that is needed to have a successful project and to accomplish that. When we're doing prototyping, taking a look at one element, when we're doing a prototyping type, we're going to listen to the customer, we're going to build, revise, and then let the customer evaluate it, test it, and whatever, and then we just keep going around the circle until we've finished with the prototype, achieving the objectives of the prototype, and then we would move on into the next level of development, which would probably be like full-scale development. In problem solving, if our project is like a problem-solving type project, we look at the definition of the problem, and then we go into technical development, we look into the integration of the solution, and then we decide, we go, okay, we want to stay in status quo for the results of that, or do we continue, look at the problem again and see how well we have actually come up with a solution, how well our solution serves the purpose. A complexity of that is to do spiral problem solving, where we just move from one iteration onto the next iteration, onto the next, and then we go to status quo. Here's a graphical example of the rolling wave, which I described a little while ago. You might move across the bottom in these various phases, And then as you move across these phases, you only detail plan, like grassroots plan, the first phase, and then you move on and detail plan out the second phase. And then as you work through the second, you do the third, the fourth, the fifth, until you've actually completed it. And then if there's any iterations, you might roll back into the area where you feel that you need to have more iterations, or your project needs more functionality, more capability, more work. Inspire is another project methodology, another project lifestyle that has become very popular. And the four elements of Inspire is initiate, speculate, incubate, and review. Going from initiate to speculate, we're going into planning, to executing, to measuring, and then we cycle back to see whether or not we have arrived at where we want to be or whether we can improve it. There is a iterative process there that we can go into as a part of the Inspire project life. So the question really becomes, when we're having a new project, which model really fits? How do we go about that process of select the project methodology model that really fits us? So some of the type questions that we want to ask is, like, what kind of project is it? What type is it? Is it a business, a feasibility, pre-engineering, prototyping? What type project is this that we are about to embark on? What about its profile? What about the tasks? Are they predictable, unpredictable? Can we predict what the life cycle, the end point should be? How much work is really well known? What about contingencies? Is this a high-risk project? Where it is? All of these are the kind of questions that you can ask to stimulate thought, to stimulate a response, to define the elements that'll help you determine what kind of project this is. The factors that can affect that choice is the size of project, whether the requirements are well defined or not, what kind of technology. Is this a technology that has been well reduced to practice, that is well known and low risk technology, or is this a new emerging technology that is still almost in an R&D environment, or there's still a lot of uncertainty about how you implement this technology or reduce it to practice? What about the time frame? What about the customer's requirements? What about the unknowns? All right, and then how are you going to integrate it? The complexity of it. Is it the design factors, resource skills? How well can we staff this? The quality. What's the risk tolerance of the project? Can the project stand risk or not? It depends on all of these kind of factors that help us select the model that we want to use. This is a brief chart from Wysaki's Effective Project Management Text, 7th edition. Walking down the left side, we're looking at the project model life cycle model type. That's those 5 models: linear, incremental, iterative, adaptive, and extreme. And then there's a brief few comments helping us when to use it. Okay, for linear, the solution requirements are clearly defined. You do not expect too many scope changes. Incremental, some conditions as the linear approach, but the client wants to deploy business value incrementally. In other words, functionality and the degree of functionality is going to be deployed or committed by the customer or the client as we work through the project. So we may want to be in an incremental type project mode. When we have requirements that are not too complete, or they may change, or we're going to learn more about requirements later, the remaining requirements, as we move through the project. And some features, maybe the solution is not fully identified. That moves us into iterative. And then so on and so forth. We go then from there to adaptive, as there's more and more unknowns. Lots of scope changes. Project is oriented to a new product development or process. So there's a lot of uncertainty. And we have a tight development schedule, so we really want to be very flexible and be able to respond to what the project needs and what the client needs to achieve the goal. And then extreme, where the goal and the solution are not clearly known, and usually these are pure R&D type projects where a company is trying to develop either a new product, apply a new technology, and there is certainly a tremendous amount of uncertainty and unknowns about the precise description of the goal and the solution, exactly how we're going to get there. These are models that we want to use. A little more detail on these models, responding to the question how to choose the methodology for our project. If it's waterfall, we're in a risk-averse culture. In other words, we don't want to be in high risk. Incremental, we got stable requirements, but they're stable, but there's many diverse ones. And there's hardware rollout plans. will be that, so we're incremental. We're going to do from time to time, we're going to increase the capability of our output. Rapid application development, and this is a software-oriented process, absolutely. Spiral. Requirements are evolving. It's a customer evaluation is needed, a lot of involvement with the customer, and that'll give us customer input, which will change our direction, change in what we're doing, and then we have a final product that is required. And this is good on hardware deployment. Modified spiral, this is where the product is evolving and it's released on a features basis. We may decide that we're going to release an iPod this year, and we're going to put another one out next year, and a little different functionality the year after that. So we may use a type of spiral where our development cycle is on an annual basis. And then a prototyping where we really need to decide, is this feasible? Can we do whatever it is we're trying to develop, either in a product or a service? And that's usually where prototyping comes in. It's trying to come up with something that demonstrates the ability or the inability to achieve the kind of goal that we're looking to. Problem solving, business processes are involved here. A rolling wave, we've talked about that. This is where we are really looking on short-term requirements, short-term performance, and from that we'll get more definition on what the next phase is, and then we keep moving forward phase to phase. Basically then, with this as a background of the sophistication that has really developed in the project management world and in the way that projects are to be managed and handled, and the flexibility and the competence required of project managers. Organizations need to realize that we need to have a certain amount of education or training for our project staff, for team members, project managers, and even those that are not going to be directly involved in the projects, but they may support the projects either through taking on work packages from the projects or providing staff to the project teams. And so there needs to be recognition, there needs to be a certain amount of education and training. The methodology that we use and apply, we really need to have that as a effective and repeatable process that we all understand. The tools and techniques, the consistency that's required across projects. I sat in with a CEO on a project one time. It was a monthly project review of a very, very major project. His frustration was that his project managers all presented their data, their cost reports, their schedule accomplishments, their risks, all with different formats. And so the CEO and his executive staff had to figure out at the beginning of each project review how to interpret and understand and appreciate the information that was being presented by the project manager. And so each project, it was very obvious, each project manager was running their projects in different methodologies, different tools, different ways, different perspectives, different strategies, and that there was really not a consistent process across the projects so that the rest of the company could really understand what was going on. And also there needs to be a good career path for project professionals. And quite often, if there's a sufficient number of projects, the business relies on the effectiveness and the success of projects, then a good project management office is required to provide mentoring and guidance and training and to help put into place these processes and take a look at these tools and get a consistency in the way that the projects are being delivered. When we talk about all of this, it brings to mind that a sense we talk about maturity, project process maturity. How mature is our company's project delivery capability, the project managers? How well do they work together? Do we have a constant way of doing business? In truth, in a competitive world we're in today, a company's project management process should not be stagnant. It should always be improving. We should always be working to raise the bar. Good organizations that manage and handle and thrive off their projects do continuously review and improve them. And they look at these models and methodologies that we have just gone through, and they make sure that they select the right one, and they use the right one for the right type project. And the project managers and teams have the flexibility and capability and the comfort level to survive and exist and thrive in a project that has had a strategy applied to it based on one of these methodologies. And then our customers look at us, and they look at us too, and look at our organizations to determine how mature and how professional and how capable is our project delivery. And this rating is key in attaining business and being competitive. When we do review and look for improvement, we need to have that on a continuous basis, and it also is not free. In other words, the company's got to invest back into their project management methodologies and maturity to keep improving, raising the bar, and improving the quality and the performance of the teams on there. To go back to where this maturity really came from, actually in the 60s is when software development for the government was in process, and the government, quite frankly, got very, very dissatisfied with the amount of overruns and the amount of uncertainty and unpredictability and missed schedules, missed budgets that was occurring by the contractors in their service and in their delivery of software to the government for the government's needs. The Department of Defense commissioned Carnegie Mellon University's Software Engineering Institute to set up and improve the software development processes. And particularly the Air Force funded a study there in software project control and improvement. They came out with a software management maturity model, development maturity model that had 5 steps to it. And it was very effective, and many companies are being evaluated on where they are in this, on the level of their maturity, how well they have developed. That process for software development has now been applied to project management, and I, for one, am very, very pleased that it has. Because as you can look here, there are 5 steps, and the steps are the same as that which was developed for software development. However, what we're focused on is project management and project management processes. And so the definition or the brief description for these 5 levels, initial, repeatable, defined, managed, optimized, goes up. Initial is ad hoc, no formal project management process. And this reminds me particularly of the one company I worked for that I just finished describing to you, where every project manager had their own way of doing a project, their own way of reporting it, their own way of tracking it. And so there was no formal project management process. There was no commonality within the company at all. And then as you move to get out of that environment and you move for improvement, what you're looking for is to implement a form of project management methodology, starting that implementation process. And then as you move up from repeatable to define, what you are achieving is the fact that these project management practices are being used and being adapted so they fit better, but more and more of the project managers are actually using these processes. And so there is this common practical project delivery process in place. And then as you moved up from that, now we have these project management processes being used throughout our projects, and they're also the various performance in accordance with these processes are being measured and controlled. And so now we're getting that uniformity. We're really raising the bar. And then as we get up to the 5th level, the optimized, the top level, what we're really looking at there is continuous improvement. And we're not looking to implement any further management processes or anything like that, but actually we're looking to continuously improve those processes we have, which may include evolved processes and evolved performance. But that is where we really want to be, because that's when we are having very professional delivered projects and project managers that are working well together. Taking a look now in a very quick picture of the level one, the initial, it's called ad hoc or chaotic, and fundamentally it is honestly chaotic. It has inconsistently performed practices. Every project manager is doing their own thing, and we're going in different directions. We're working very hard to be successful in delivering our projects, but we're doing it our way rather than any commonality in the process whatsoever. When we're talking about repeatable, level two, all right, now we have our goal is to have a project management methodology developed. We need a commitment to perform that. We're working towards that. And then the team members are being trained in that project planning methodology, the ability to perform. And then we have stakeholders that are actually signing off on project plan. So we're implementing it. We're trying to classify our projects according to whatever the specific criteria is, using those methodologies we reviewed a few minutes ago. Project reviews conducted on a regular basis using standardized methods so others can come in, our executives, our CEOs, our CFOs, our clients can come in and review the project and see commonality and understand, quite frankly, what is really going on. And our team members are trained in that methodology. Moving up to level three, where we're talking about a defined methodology. Here, in this sense, we have an organization-wide PMIS, or Project Management Information System, established. And that doesn't mean that it's automated, all the software or anything like that, but basically we have a Project Management Information System. We're using common set of type documents for our projects as long as they apply and exist. If not, we're using a brief variation, but it's still within our project management information system. And we have a commitment to perform. We're really using a documented procedure, and the team members are trained in using this information system, and they're performing to it. Our level four, managed, now we're modifying, we're improving our project management and our methodology. We're really looking for best practices. We're boiling out the best practices, having them distilled out, using them, instilling them, replacing and improving our project management information system. We have good process developed to identify, collect, and analyze our best practices. So now you can see our focus really is on coming up with really very good best practices. And then we have a lessons learned repository. Every project makes a delivery at the end of the project of lessons learned to that repository so that we can continue to pass on what we learn, and that those that come behind us and the next teams and the next projects can review and learn from those lessons learned. And also it helps all of us to contribute to developing these best practices so that we can really have a very professional and productive organization. And then 5, we come to the optimizing, and optimizing means now we are really focused on this continuous process improvement. And we're looking at that in the areas of the project management processes, our tools, and human resource issues, looking at our knowledge level, skills, competencies, team performance, making sure we have the right people, right skill set, right skill level, proper competence to do the projects that our organization needs us to do. With that, then, I want to conclude our presentation for today. I hope you found it interesting. If there are any questions you may have or anything about this, please feel free to send me an email or get in contact with me. And I wish you a great day and a great week, and I'm looking forward to working with you again this week.